When someone breaks you, truly breaks you, it's not just about a moment of sadness or a passing disappointment. It's the kind of pain that digs deep, settles in your chest, and reshapes the way you see yourself, others, and the world. Acknowledging that pain isn't about being better or holding a grudge. It's about facing the truth of what you endured and allowing yourself the space to grieve, to process, and to eventually heal. So often, people are told to move on too quickly, to forgive and forget. But what they don't understand is that pain doesn't just vanish because time passes. When someone walks away or betrays you, especially someone you trusted with your heart, it leaves behind a wound that doesn't heal by ignoring it. It festers in silence, and the more you suppress it, the more it controls you from the inside out. Acknowledging the pain they caused means looking that wound in the eye and saying, I see you, I feel you, and you are real. But you are real. It's admitting that their actions weren't fair, weren't justified, and weren't your fault. It's calling out the lies they told, the manipulation they used, the moments they left you in the dark while you cried out for answers. It's remembering the nights you stared at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, wondering what you did wrong, when in truth, the wrong was never yours to carry. This isn't about blaming or seeking revenge. This is about validation, about giving your experience the weight it deserves. Because too often, people who break us try to rewrite the story when they come back. They minimize the damage. They joke about the past, or they act like nothing ever happened, that something did happen, something that changed you. And pretending it didn't only adds another layer of pain on top of the original wound. Acknowledging the pain they caused is an act of reclaiming your narrative. It's the moment you stop gaslighting yourself into thinking you overreacted or were too sensitive. No, you were human. You loved deeply. You believed in someone, and they let you down in a way that shattered your sense of safety and trust. Maybe they left without explanation. Maybe they cheated. Maybe they lied day after day while looking you in the eye. Maybe they made you feel small, worthless, or invisible. Whatever it was, it mattered. And it's okay to say it out loud. It's okay to write it down, cry it out, scream if you need to. That pain is real, and it deserves your attention, not your silence. Only by acknowledging the pain can you truly begin to heal. You don't have to carry it forever, but you do have to confront it. Otherwise, it follows you into new relationships, into the way you see yourself, into the future you're trying to rebuild. Naming the pain is the first step to taking its power away. You endured something that hurt you, and you're still here. This isn't weakness. This is courage. You're not broken beyond repair. You're just healing in real time. And healing starts with truth. So if they ever come back trying to pretend the past didn't happen, let your truth stand strong. You remember what it felt like. You know what it cost you. And that knowledge, that clarity, that's your power now. You are not who you were. The version of you that loved them, trusted them, waited for their texts, made excuses for their behavior, that person doesn't live here anymore. And that's not something to be ashamed of. That's growth. That's transformation, born out of pain. When someone breaks you, and sometimes what they unknowingly create is a newer, stronger, wiser version of the person they once thought they could take for granted. The truth is, many people return because they miss the way you love them. They miss the comfort, the security, the version of themselves they were when you were around. But that doesn't mean they're ready to give you what you deserve. Sometimes they just miss control. Sometimes they miss access. Sometimes they miss the version of you that accepted less than what you were worth. And if you're still healing, if you're still holding on to hope, it's easy to confuse that with real progress. But look closer. Has this person taken responsibility for their actions without making excuses? Have they acknowledged your pain, not just in passing, but with genuine remorse and understanding? Have they changed their behavior patterns? Or are they just using different words to mask the same intentions? Are they showing up with actions, or are they simply offering recycled promises that sound familiar? It's easy to talk about change. It's much harder to live it. And if they haven't done the work, real, honest work on themselves, then nothing has changed but the moment. They may be back, but their presence alone isn't proof of growth. It's not a miracle. It's not a reward. Sometimes people come back because life didn't treat them the way they expected it to. Sometimes they return because the grass wasn't greener, and now they remember the comfort they left behind. But you're not a comfort zone. You're not a backup plan. You're not a safe place for someone who hasn't learned how to be safe for you. You don't owe anyone another chance just because they suddenly remembered you exist. You don't have to open your door, your arms, or your heart to someone just because they knocked. You get to choose now. You get to ask the hard questions. You get to guard your peace. Their return is not the climax of a love story. It's a test of what you've learned, a test of how far you've come, a test of whether you'll fall for the same patterns or whether you'll recognize that growth means not just healing, but protecting that healing. Maybe they've changed. Maybe they haven't. But the better question is, have you changed enough to walk away from what once broke you, even when it tries to come back sounding sweet? Protect your peace. It's more than just a catchy phrase. It's a survival skill. After everything you've been through, after the hurt, the heartbreak, the confusion, the overthinking, the late nights wondering what went wrong, you've earned the right to guard your inner world like it's sacred, because it is sacred. Your peace is the result of battles no one saw. It's the quiet you fought for after all the noise they left behind. When someone comes back after breaking you, they might say all the right things. They might look at you like they suddenly remember what they lost. But their words don't deserve immediate trust. You've learned sometimes the sweetest apologies are just keys to the same old cycle. Sometimes the second chance they want isn't about love. It's about ego. It's about regaining access, not rebuilding connection. And that's why protecting your peace is not just important. It's necessary. You protect your peace when you say no without feeling guilty. When you put up a boundary and don't explain it. When you walk away from people who drain you, even if your heart still has love for them. You protect your peace when you stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. When you stop trying to prove your worth to someone who already showed you they couldn't see it the first time. It's strange to look back at yourself and see how much you tolerated, how much you gave, how much you bent just to make things work. You were soft. You were forgiving. You led with your heart, even when it got bruised, over and over again. You believed in them, in the potential and the promises that never came true. And while there's nothing wrong with loving like that, there comes a time when you realize that version of you deserved better. That version of you was pouring from a cup that was barely full. That version of you thought love meant proving your worth through suffering. But now you know better. You've come through the fire. You've sat with your pain in the quiet. You've had those long nights of overthinking, of wondering if you were the problem, if maybe you were asking for too much. But the truth revealed itself over time. You weren't asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. You've learned to stop chasing people who only run when things get real. You've learned to stop explaining yourself to people who refuse to understand you. And you've learned that peace is more valuable than any half-hearted love ever could be. This new version of you moves differently. You listen to your intuition now, the voice you used to ignore. You pay attention to actions, not just words. You no longer romanticize potential, you respect patterns. You don't beg for clarity or closure. You create it for yourself. You've stopped shrinking to fit into someone else's comfort zone. And most importantly, you started showing up for yourself the way you used to show up for others. It's not that you're cold now. It's that you've built boundaries where there used to be open wounds. It's not that you don't care. It's that you've learned to care for yourself first. And yes, there's a kind of sadness in realizing how much you've changed. You may miss the innocence, the hope, the unguarded heart. But you also know that surviving what you did came at a cost. And that cost was the old version of you, the one who didn't know better, the one who hadn't yet been tested. So when they come back acting like nothing's changed, remember, everything has changed. You have changed. You're not the same person who would have welcomed them back with open arms. You're not the same person who would have twisted yourself into a knot just to keep their love. You're not standing in the same emotional place anymore. You're grounded now, rooted in reality, in truth, in self-respect. They may not recognize this new you. They may try to speak to the old version they used to manipulate, but that version of you is gone. And what's in their place is someone who knows their worth, who knows their limits, and who doesn't need to be chosen by someone who once broke them. Just because they came back doesn't mean they've changed. People often return when they feel your absence more than they appreciated your presence. But showing up again isn't a sign of growth. It's often just a moment of nostalgia, loneliness, or convenience. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake their return for redemption. You'll want to believe that their presence now somehow erases the pain they caused before, but it doesn't. Change is more than words. It's more than a few apologies or a new tone of voice. Real change takes time, effort, consistency. It requires self-awareness and accountability. Two things most people avoid because they're uncomfortable. So when someone who broke you shows up again, you have to pause and ask yourself, what exactly has changed? Is it just the timing, their mood, or have they actually done the hard work to become a better person? Peace isn't passive, it's powerful. It's the decision to let go of chaos, to stop choosing people who only choose you when it's convenient, to stop making excuses for behavior that hurt you just because you missed the memories. Peace is knowing that sometimes closure doesn't come with a conversation. It comes with a decision. And sometimes the most healing thing you can do is not go back. It's okay to miss them and still move on. It's okay to forgive them and still not let them back in. You can wish someone well from a distance. You can let them go without hate. Protecting your peace means remembering what it cost you to find calm again. Remember the version of you who cried silently, who questioned their own value, who had to rebuild trust in themselves after someone shattered it. That version of you deserves protection now. Not just love, protection. They're really different. They'll respect your boundaries. They won't rush you. They won't pressure you. They won't guilt trip you into forgetting everything that happened. But even then, protecting your peace means moving slow, watching patterns, and staying rooted in what's best for you, not what sounds good in the moment. You're allowed to say, I'm not ready. You're allowed to say, I've changed. You're allowed to say, I've made peace, and going back would destroy it. You don't owe anyone access to the healed version of you, especially if they played a role in breaking the old one. You get to protect your joy, your clarity, your energy, and your growth. So if they come back and your heart starts to soften, pause, breathe. Remember what it took to get here. Protect your peace like it's everything, because honestly it is. It's not just about avoiding pain, it's about honoring how far you've come. You didn't go through all that to end up in the same place again. Peace isn't just the goal, it's the standard now. Closure doesn't always come wrapped in the perfect apology or a heartfelt conversation. It doesn't always show up when you're ready or in the way you imagine. Sometimes closure never comes from them at all. And that's the hardest part to accept. But one of the deepest truths you can learn is this. Closure comes from within. People, it's natural to want answers, to crave explanations that make the pain make sense. You want to ask them why they treated you that way, why they left, why they lied, why they let go when you were holding on so tightly. You imagine that if you could just hear the right words, it would all hurt a little less. That maybe if they finally owned up to everything they did, you could let go and move on. But the reality is, sometimes people won't give you what you need. Sometimes they don't have the capacity to be honest. Sometimes they won't take accountability because that would mean facing the truth about themselves. And not everyone is ready to do that. So you wait. You wait for a text that never comes, or a call that's always promised but never made. You wait for an apology that stays stuck in someone else's pride. And while you wait, your healing is held hostage by their silence. That's why closure can't depend on someone else. It has to be something you create, something you give yourself, even when it feels unfair. Closure is choosing to move forward even without the full story. It's realizing that your peace doesn't need their permission, that you don't need their validation to accept what happened and decide what happens next. You're allowed to say, this hurt me, and still walk away, even if they never acknowledge it. You're allowed to let go without a proper goodbye. You're allowed to heal in your own time, in your own way, on your own turn. It's not about pretending you're okay. It's about being honest with yourself, about honoring your feelings, anger, sadness, confusion, all of it, and letting them pass through you instead of staying stuck inside. Closure is when you stop chasing answers and start trusting that some questions aren't worth your energy anymore. You may never understand why they changed, why they disappeared, why they didn't fight for you. You may never know the real reason behind the betrayal, the silence, or the lies. But understanding isn't the same as healing. You don't have to solve the mystery of their behavior to reclaim your life. You just have to decide that you're done carrying what they left behind. Closure is when you forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. It's when you stop rereading the old messages, stop replaying the same memories, and stop trying to rewrite the past. It's when you stop hoping they'll come back and finally say all the right things. It's when you realize that the power to move on was never in their hands. It was always in yours. You get to close the chapter without their cooperation. You get to rebuild yourself from the wreckage. And maybe you'll always carry the scars, but you won't carry the weight. That's closure. It's not something they give you, it's something you give yourself. When you're ready, when you're tired of hurting, when you finally choose to free yourself from the story that was never meant to define you. There comes a moment in your healing journey when something shifts. It's quiet, almost unnoticeable at first, but it changes everything. It's that moment when you look at yourself, really look, and realize I deserve better, not just better treatment, better love, better effort, better energy, better everything. And once you know it, you can't unknow. Before that moment, maybe you were stuck in cycles, giving chances, accepting bare minimums, holding on to someone who gave you just enough to keep you hoping, but never enough to truly make you feel secure. You convinced yourself to stay. You told yourself that love is about patience, about compromise, about forgiveness. And while all of that can be true, it's also true that love should never come at the cost of your dignity, your joy, or your peace. Somewhere along the way you settled. Maybe because you didn't believe you could ask for more. Maybe because you thought love was supposed to hurt a little. Maybe because no one ever showed you what healthy love looked like, but you know now. You know that being constantly confused, anxious, or hurt isn't love, it's emotional exhaustion. You know that constantly explaining your worth to someone is a losing battle. You know that love shouldn't feel like a war zone where you're always on guard, hoping today will be the day they finally show up for you the way you show up for them. You've learned probably the hard way that real love doesn't make you question yourself. It doesn't manipulate or ghost or gaslight. It doesn't breadcrumb you with affection only when it's convenient. Real love is consistent. It's present. It's gentle. Even when it's honest. It helps you grow, not shrink. And now that you've felt what it's like to go without it, now that you've seen the damage caused by less, you can finally say with certainty, you deserve more. And not just more in a vague, romanticized way. You deserve effort. You deserve clarity. You deserve someone who doesn't make you beg for the basics. Someone who understands that your heart is not a game, not a project, not a place to land when everything else falls apart. You deserve someone who chooses you, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Who doesn't just say, I love you, but proves it in the small, consistent ways that matter. The most powerful part, you don't just want better, you know you're worthy of it. That shift is everything. Because once you know your worth, you stop entertaining people who don't. You stop confusing attachment with love. You stop waiting for someone to change and start changing the way you show up for yourself. And that might mean being alone for a while. It might mean walking away from people who feel familiar. But you'd rather be alone in peace than surrounded in pieces. You deserve better. And now you live like you do. You speak up. You say no. You set boundaries that protect your spirit. You don't settle for almost or maybe or someday. You want real, and you're not afraid to wait for it. Because your love is not cheap. Your energy is not free. Your presence is not a favor. It's a gift. And only the ones who recognize that deserve to keep it.